Check Podcasts.
Hi, I'm Bruce Williams. I'm the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Chamber Chats, coming to you as always from here in the podcasting studios at the Czech Media Group, one of our chamber champions. I will acknowledge, as always, that I live and work in the traditional land of the Lekwungen-speaking nations, known to us as the Songhees and Kosapsum nations. And it's our pleasure and honor to work alongside them every day. And all of this is made possible by the support of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union, who are redefining what banking can do for people, for community, and for the planet. We're going to talk today, actually, with one of the Island Savings professionals, the connection between food and finance. We have seen the cost of living increase, and that's been a huge factor in the cost of our food, as well as housing and a number of other things. But better managing the resource you have, whether it's limited or endless, is all about better managing your money. So we're going to talk about that with our Island Savings professional in just a moment. First of all, though, Emily Palamaka joins us. She's the Director of Food Security at the Mustard Seed Food Bank. Emily, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
So what's this whole inflation period and cost of living increase done to the profile of the people that are using the mustard seed?
For sure, yeah. So this past year, we have seen, I was just looking at our database, and about 34% of our users were brand new this last calendar year. That's a massive increase. Those are people who've never ever been here, not just this year, but they've never had to access a food bank. So that's quite a staggering number.
Yeah, we're going to kind of unpack that a little bit more later on down the road, but you can't prepare for that, can you? Can you really anticipate that?
Absolutely not. And I mean, just having a look, Christmas is right around the corner. Looking in our inventory and our cooler, which is filled up through the food rescue program we'll talk about later.
hmm
But it's looking pretty empty. This year has been shocking, actually. Yeah. Inventory is low. What's coming in from the stores is low. People who were once able to donate food or financially, they're also starting to feel the crunch of inflation.
Yeah, it's been an interesting and challenging time, that's for sure. Pandemic driven and other causes is a part of that as well. So, talking about the finance side of it, our professional from Island Savings is joining us. Lorena Milkert is the Director of Retail Banking. Lorena, how are you?
Really good, thank you.
So, let's talk about your clients and the members at Island Savings. How is all of this stuff and this cost of food and inflation impacting your people on a day to day basis?
Well, it's definitely changing the conversations we're having with our members. There's lots of conversations around rates, and everyone's waiting to see where they go. And today, the Bank of Canada, lowered their rate by 50 basis points, so that's great. But there's a lot more focus on cash management and budgeting conversations than ever before. Members are struggling to budget their expenditures with their means, and it's showing up on higher credit card balances, which opens up the door for a lot of credit discussions and planning conversations around their credit and how they handle their credit and what we can do to help. Housing costs is a huge topic, has been for a number of years here. Obviously, you know that. Many residents are facing high rents and escalating property values, which is pushing ownership out of the reach for many. And on the flip side, the parents of these young adults are questioning if they need to push out the retirement dates. So that's a newer conversation. And what do they need to do to help get their kids into the housing market? Now, I'm in that same situation. I have a 20-year-old son, and it's, what do I need to work for another 10 years and co-sign a mortgage and help him with his down payment? Probably. Or is he going to be living with me for the rest of his life, right? So, or for a longer period of time. Those are the kind of conversations that we're having. It's interesting. Members are super patient and watching and super keen more than ever. So I've been in the industry for over 30 years, and members are keen to learn, and they want the help, and they're seeking the advice, which is a shift, and it's good to see, right? Because we need to have everybody educated on financial literacy moving forward for sure.
Yeah, just as a point of reference, we're recording this on December the 11th. Just so you know, that was the day when the Bank of Canada lowering the rate was announced on that. So, okay, Emily, let's go back to the food bank, to the mustard seed. So you said you've seen a 34% increase in people who are coming in for the first time. Those people and who are these people? Like who goes to the mustard seed? Tell me who they are.
Sure. So there's a lot of people who are receiving income assistance from the government. A large proportion are on disability, but it has shifted a little bit. There's a larger percentage of people who have full-time employment and somewhat secure housing. which is a little bit of a different profile from what we've seen traditionally as a food bank user. So yeah, just not really who you traditionally expect to be visiting. Um, it's a very expensive city to live in, and so people, yeah, they've got full-time jobs, dual income households we're seeing as well, that are still at the end of, the paycheck and paying the rent, paying the bills. They can't afford to eat, at least healthily or culturally relevant foods. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're seeing.
I would think that seniors on a fixed income is another cohort that's kind of growing. Are you seeing that?
Yes, definitely seniors. Yeah, and that's a frustrating statistic on our end. People on disability and seniors, people who should not be working, cannot work anymore. They should be better supported.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of these people are feeding their kids too, right?
Yes. Yeah. And like Lorena was saying, we have multi-adult families now, people who are not able to leave the home when they used to. They can't afford to go to school or to live on their own. And so, yeah, it's changing out there.
And Lorena, you had mentioned people that are carrying higher credit card balances right now, or maybe a line of credit or whatever they might have. That's not good health planning and financial planning to be living on credit like that, right? Because then you're compounding interest and stuff. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, um, we try to educate people around if you spend it on your credit card, pay it out monthly. But when people back into it every month because they just don't have the means, their cash flow doesn't, you can't budget for the expenditures based on the cash flow that's coming in. They're backing into their credit cards, and it isn't good financial planning, but it's common. It's more common than we think. Um, 21% interest rates on your credit cards. There's things that we can do. I always suggest that if you are in that spot, like a lot of people just stay there and they're like, I'm going to pay it off. I'm going to pay it off. But it's revolving debt and it needs to be termed out, or you need to have a plan around it, right? And there's always ways to get out of it. Um, and also, we're emotional spenders now too, right? We're not used to waiting and saving to buy something that we need. We can put it on the credit card. It's a tap society. It's a cashless society, and everyone just gets caught in that little vicious circle.
Yeah. There's a term going around right now called food insecurity. We're going to talk about that next. On Chamber Chats today, we're talking about the relationship between food and finance. Emily Bellamacca is here from the. Did I just say your name right?
Palamaca.
Thank you. Bellamacca
Yeah.
is the Director of Food Security at the Mustard Seed, and Lorena Milkert is here, Director of Retail Banking with Island Savings. So, Emily, I'm going to come back to you right now. Food insecurity, that is suddenly a term popping up everywhere in all kinds of conversations. Tell me how that applies to the Mustard Seed.
So I mean, the food banking part of the Mustard Seed, that is what we're attempting to support and tackle every day. My title is, yeah, Director of Food Security, but we are not anywhere close to a food secure region or nation for that fact. So yeah, food insecurity it can look like a lot of different things. If you've ever been to the grocery store and looked at an item or a product and decided to put it back based on the price of it, that's food insecurity. So it's not this just the idea of that individual who's maybe lost their job or been on hard times going to the food bank. I think we're all experiencing food insecurity right now across Canada, really.
Lorena, you mentioned a word earlier that I want to talk about now in relation to food insecurity, and that is the B word, budget. How does one even begin to create a budget for their living style?
Budgets are interesting, right? Like, I mean, you really got to sit down and look at what you're spending, what your inflows are. It's your net income always that you're looking at, and then your expenditures. And it's funny when you tell members to go do a budget, it's homework. I don't even like doing a budget because it is homework. So it's difficult for many, right, to sit down. And I always say lump your expenses into three categories, like necessities, savings, and then wants. And when we're talking about food budget, people don't consider food when you're talking about budget, which is interesting. It's not a fixed cost, it's a variable cost. So whenever you go through budget, it seems like groceries, food, and then a lot of people eat out. It's all kind of mixed up, and it's difficult for members to kind of put their head there. The mortgage payment, they know they got to pay it, but food is always kind of left as a back burner. And I always say, bring in your food costs into necessities. Make it a fixed cost. So make it a fixed cost. That means that if I know that I'm going to spend $400 a week for a family of 4, then I know when I get paid bi-weekly that I'm going to put aside $800 for food costs until I get paid again. And there's nothing more important that I would say when budgeting is when you get paid, make sure that all your necessity payments get moved into a different account so that it's saved for those expenses. Because a lot of people just keep them in their checking account. By second week in, they don't have enough money for groceries, right? Because they're spending it everywhere else. I have a grocery account, I have a utilities account, I have a mortgage account, I have a travel account. And when my paycheck comes in, I have budgeted so much to go into each account, so I know that it's there. And for budgeting for groceries, it's planning meals out for the week. We talk a lot about that. If you know what you're making on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then you can build your grocery list based off of that, right? And then also for food waste, you can look in your pantry and see what you have, and then go and shop for what you don't have and avoid impulse buying. And then reducing eating out habits and costs, that's a big one, right? Cooking has become a lot easier over the years. You can just Google it. And if you're able to do that rather than eating out, you're going to save a lot of money. And the one thing I would say, Bruce, is the loyalty programs of the different grocery stores. Like, look into it. There's a ton of savings. If you understand the apps, you understand the loyalty programs, and you understand how to take advantage of all those little insights, and asking your grocery store for help on that is so much worth your while. Like I shop at Save on Foods. I shop everywhere, but I do like their point system. I get a trip to Mexico every few years from my points. I love it, right? I get ferry vouchers all the time for my points, and definitely a lot of savings as well for what's on sale.
Yeah. I use the Scene points at Thrifty Foods because that's the
Oh,
store
yeah.
closest to where we live.
That's a good one too.
But
Yeah.
everybody's got one for sure. And Emily, I'll get back to you in a second. But Lorena, when you talk about having different accounts for your money to go to different places, don't be afraid to ask your credit union or your bank to help you with that, right? Because there are people that will do that, right? Just go to the branch.
That's
what
what we do all day long. Yeah.
Help people better.
100%.
Because as we've said many times on this podcast, a lot of people are terrified of money. They don't want to deal with it. They don't know what to do about it. It frightens them and intimidates them.
And I think if you take one message away from all of it, Bruce, you're not alone. Like, people think they need to be financial experts. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm still not an expert. I rely on my financial advisor. I go see him every 3 months and we have a conversation. There's always a need. There's always something that I'm aware of and it's kind of niggling in the back of my head. I might be embarrassed that I've racked up some debt, and he points it out and reminds me. And if nothing else, it keeps people on plan. It keeps people reminding them. Everyone's going to fall off track on their financial plan. But how do you recuperate? How do you revisit? How do you adjust the plan? And how do you look at, what's the process? You're going to touch someone 100 different times in a lifetime if you're using a financial advisor. It doesn't matter if you have $100,000 with us or you have zero money. At the end of the day, everyone deserves a financial plan. And that's what we're here to do, is help.
Obviously budgeting, you take a look at items that are on sale and you buy things that are in season. There's all that stuff. So Emily, when people are coming in to the Mustard Seed Food Bank, are they directed to certain areas to help them balance their diet, or are they kind of on their own? How does that all work?
So our food bank does have kind of a grocery store style. We went full in that direction a few years ago, but COVID kind of hindered things. But basically, they come in and sit down with the volunteer, and they can go over some dietary restrictions if it's they're vegan or there's religious restrictions. But they walk through, we call it the U. It's in a U shape, and there's volunteers behind the tables. And there's boxes of items, and they can select. It varies day to day how many items from each box, and it also varies based on how many people are in their household. But then the volunteers are also notified of any dietary restrictions or special needs, and we do have a section for those products to help them have a more relevant hamper, so that they're consuming and taking away what they want, so there's less food waste, and it's just a more useful hamper for them.
Yeah, the Mustard Seed is more than a food bank. They do other things, including something called a food rescue program. We're going to talk about that next. We're talking today about the relationship between food and finance, better understanding your money, better budgeting your money to make better choices for food. Lorena Milkert is here from Island Savings. We'll come back to her in a minute. But Emily Palamaka, what's the rescue center, the Food Rescue Center? What is that?
Yeah, so the food rescue program is one of the major things that operates out of our food security distribution center on Viewfield Road, and that's has a long history. It was started as an initiative out of something called the Food Share Network, which is a collective of about 70 agencies in town. So churches, community centers, other nonprofits and charities, housing complexes. And so the mustard seed was chosen to operate that program. So it's our trucks out on the road Monday to Saturday, 6 to 2. And they have set routes. We've established, a trustworthy and reliable relationship with our grocery partners. We're always working on those to make sure we're meeting their needs and they're meeting our needs. And then the trucks are back a few times a day, and the food comes in and is sorted by volunteers, and then it goes back out to those agencies. And we see between 10 and 12,000 pounds of fresh food every day. So last year we hit about 3 million pounds of product that came in. Some of that is compost. We have a few farmers that pick up to reduce our carbon emissions. So yeah, it's going pretty well. I think it's about 7 years that program's been running. But we are seeing less coming in from the stores, and we do have a wait list of agencies right now. So the demand is going up, and the food is staying about the same or a little bit less. And the agencies that are already part of the program, they are expressing daily that their numbers are doubling, basically. So it is a successful program, but it's tough times. It is a little bit scary out there. We're finding it difficult to meet the need.
Yeah, Food Rescue to the Rescue. And it's an amazing I've been to that facility, and it's amazing. But it's a real indication of the state that we're in right now, right? That this kind of stuff has to happen to keep people fed, to keep them healthy. Lorena, when we talk about managing money in general, a food budget is one thing, but the necessities are housing and food. And there are people right now that are probably looking at renewing a mortgage, and the rates might be significantly higher when they go to the bank than when they first negotiated. If it was back in the 1.5% prime rate or something. How does that stuff all factor into the total budgeting process?
I mean, it's very top of mind for us. 2020 and 2021 lowest 5-year mortgage rates we've seen in history. People were getting 2%, 1.44. I've seen as low as that much. A lot of people were coming in, Bruce, they were breaking their mortgage terms. They were paying a penalty just to get those rates, and they're fantastic. They're all coming up in 2025 and 2026. There's a large amount of money coming up. And if you're looking at a 2% rate versus a 4.5% rate on a $500,000 mortgage over 25 years, that's a difference of $650 a month. If it's $1 million mortgage, and Bruce, it's not surprising. There are a lot of $1 million mortgages we were talking about before the show started.
Yeah.
Out there, it's $1,300 more a month. I think the one thing would be you need to start thinking about it. Those mortgage rates from 2020 and 2021 are not coming back. We did see a decline in the Bank of Canada rate. I don't know how that's going to translate to our 5-year mortgage products, but it's certainly not going to be the same as 2020, 2021. You need to start thinking about that and going in and having a conversation with your financial advisors. There's multiple ways that we can help in order to alleviate that cash crunch, but you need to start planning for it right away. And you could there's things like extending out amortization if there's no other cash sources. There's things like a debt consolidation, again, looking at your credit card debt, bringing your line of credits, bringing your loans if you have equity in your house, because more housing prices and property values have gone up. If you have equity, sometimes we just all roll it back into one and start again and get you paid off maybe a couple of years later. But at the end of the day, ideally people pay down their principal, but I can tell you right now, it's pretty hard to do that when you have $1 million mortgage or $700,000 mortgage. Those are significant payments, and those are paycheck to paycheck. So
yeah, a significant amount of a monthly mortgage payment actually goes to interest. It doesn't go to the principal. So when you have that option, there's just once a year, maybe I think you can pay down your principal or something. And just for a point of reference, I'm a guy that's old enough that in the 1980s, I had a 21% mortgage.
Yeah.
But that was, of course, on a mortgage of like $60,000 or something. But still, at the time, that was quite onerous. I want to wrap this up on a high note. Emily, all this amazing things that you do at the Mustard Seed, who pays for that? Where do you get the resource to do it?
So we're very fortunate that the majority of our annual operating budget does come from private donations. Victoria is very supportive of the work that we do. We do apply for some grants here and there, but the majority is private donations, and that's from individuals or businesses or schools. Sometimes they'll compete with each other to do little fundraisers. I shouldn't say little, very generous, amazing
Right.
fundraisers. So yeah, we are very, very blessed. Victoria has been generous to us over the years. Yeah.
And Island Savings is generous too because, Lorena, you have something called the Full Cupboard that you do that's also a food-driven program, right?
Yeah, the full cover. It's our signature cause at Island Savings. We're super proud of it. Our mission is that no child goes hungry on the island. We raise awareness about food security in our local communities through ongoing fundraising of efforts and initiatives such as employee giving campaign, every paycheck employees give, branch barbecues, burger and beer nights, branch raffles, 50-50 draws. We do sponsorship. Winter, we were part of Winterfest and we collected food donations and monetary donations for the Mustard Seed. And it goes on. It's on the minds of all our employees all the time as part of our DNA. Bruce, I'm not kidding. Like, I cannot have any event without someone saying, what are we doing to raise money for the Mustard Seed or our local food banks on the island? Since we launched our full cupboard in June 2016, we've raised approximately $700,000 and collected over 18,000 pounds of food, which we've donated to the Mustard Seed and our local food banks serving communities all up the island. We pay for volunteer days, and most of those volunteer days are at our local food banks. We go to the Mustard Seed on a monthly basis. We have a team that goes out. We love cooking with Chris in the kitchen, Emily. That's my favorite job. He makes the best pumpkin pies I've ever tasted. And yeah, it's just part of what we do. We had a member the other day come in and said, like, I want to donate $1,000 to your guys' full cover, and that goes straight to the Mustard Seed. So we're super proud of everything that our staff do. They're committed and love working here because of that.
Well, we're very pleased to be working with you on this all the time, too, and we appreciate all you do for everybody. Lorena Milkert is the Director of Retail Banking for Island Savings, and Emily Palamaka is the Director of Food Security at the Mustard Seed. Please check out the websites of both organizations, and thank you both for your time today and for all you're doing.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
And I'm Bruce Williams, and I'll see you again for another Chamber Chat.